if you get caught with a bit of weed in your pocket, you are going to be in trouble with the police. I'll shock you here. It's if you're black and not if you're white. And then in relation to like the gateway drug stuff, but you're also it's an interesting one because when you're talking to people like that, you're kind of are you going to like jump down their throat and like basically shut down a meaningful conversation by being like that's wrong, or do you try and like plummet a bit further and then talk about it in the aftermath? And the sort of what I was trying to get at there, which you will be very familiar with, Ed, because it was you and I that made that film together in Scotland. Go and watch it. It's on the PoliticsJOE YouTube channel.
Do you get what that film is? They don't know what the film is.
Deaths of Despair. It's on the YouTube channel. Go and listen to it. Go and watch it. I think we're both pretty proud of it. To be honest with you.
It was really good.
Very good. And
that sense of sort of like a loss of pride. I really don't think you can over egg how important that is. You know, that interview that you did with Brian in Postle, where he has a line in it that just really stuck with me. He was like, you know, what's the first thing someone asks you when they meet you after your name? It's, oh, what do you do? And if you don't have an answer to that, or you don't have an answer to that you're proud of, you know, your huge part of your life is taken away. In Brian's case, it was because he'd had an accident at work. He couldn't work anymore as a nurse.
That's really sad. Jeez.
He was struggling, you know, really struggling with his kind of sense of self, and saying that, you know, it's a story that's replete across that part of Glasgow, but also, you know, Scotland more broadly. I don't know. Thoughts and feels, Ed?
We should probably touch on, well, the matter of the film was Deaths of Despair, like the phenomenon of Death of Despair, which is where there's a phenomenon of young men in Scotland dying through drink, drugs, and alcohol. Drink, drugs, and suicide. And just looking at there's a theory that there's external circumstances replete in Scottish society that lead to that phenomenon, like the loss of industry, things like that, people not having meaningful work, like you touched on. I think it was. I think if you want to combat these excess deaths or self-inflicted deaths, you need to have a serious conversation about things like drugs. I think that's quite a good example of someone it's like they're having that conversation in a different language.
Yeah,
I think we've like people like us, maybe people with more liberal attitudes to drug policy. We are having a completely different conversation to more socially conservative people, older people who talking about like gateway drugs. When's the last time you earnestly said, "Oh, weed's a gateway drug"?
Yeah.
Which, think about the people you know who smoke weed, who don't touch anything else. They just like smoke a joint at the end of the week or something like that. Or
literally won't even drink.
Yeah.
That they smoke weed. Yeah.
Or cancer patients who use that.
I think you need to have like an honest evaluation of why people use certain drugs. Like someone taking a pill at a festival, that's not necessarily a problematic drug user, or someone who's going to hurt themselves. So there's no point being so punitive or stigmatizing of drug use.
But I think that you agree with the symptom, right? Like, so what Jason was talking about was like, we both agree that addiction is horrendous, but then there kind of is like two trains of thought about how to deal with that. Like the the Home Secretary's current advice is to crack down harder on it. And then there's another school of thought, which is to basically facilitate safe drug using. And if you're a part of the War on Drugs Brigade, you're never going to meet facilitating safe drug taking. And so that it never meets in the middle.
It's what drives me nuts but like the facilitating safe drug use is right. Like in that film, we talk about Peter Crichton, who set up, we talked about him with Tom Usher actually. Peter Crichton is getting a lot of shout-outs on the podcast.
I talked about him on LBC.
Yeah.
I mentioned him by name. He's a fucking legend.
He's the man. And so Peter Crichton set up that safe injection room in an old converted ambulance in Glasgow.
Yeah.
He supervised X number of injections, and there was not a single overdose. Or there might have been an overdose, but
he stopped multiple fatal overdoses.
There was not a single death through. And if Peter hadn't been there with, I can't remember the name of the drug, naloxone. If Peter hadn't been there supervising the injections, that person would have died. And Scotland's drug deaths are staggering. So if it's so frustrating hearing people just not having a good faith conversation about drug policy and just being so punitive.
It's good faith.
Yeah.
Because most of the Tories, Michael Gove being one of them, would advocate personally for more responsible or better, the kind of approach to drug taking that we agree with, that sensible Tories do, but they don't think it aligns with their base. And then loads of polling shows that actually most people out in the country don't agree with the war on drugs and don't agree with hardline drug fighting.
It won't fundamentally change until the political will in this country changes. That is the only reason why. It's not, the evidence is there. You could look at what they did. You know, the reason we went to Scotland, right, and then I went to Lisbon. Sorry, you didn't make it on that one, Ed. And
It's Lisbon for a jolly and had to justify it.
True.
You went for a conference.
yeah, there was a conference. No, okay, look, we went for a conference, and I thought, well, this is also a good opportunity to make some journalism. So we did. And they were in a very similar situation to what Scotland is sort of creeping towards now. It was much more sort of to do with heroin. It wasn't, you know, the drink and the suicide element to it. There was much more sort of intravenous drug injections, and they decriminalised. Sorry, I should say they decriminalised. It's different to legalisation, and their drug deaths fell off a cliff. The HIV, the localised HIV epidemic that they had, fell off a cliff because they stopped. Because they decriminalised. They took this whole public health approach, improved housing, improved neighbourhood policing, and that's also the really crucial thing about it is they did. It wasn't just decriminalise the drugs, problem solved. It has to take part in a context of, you know, good public healthcare. It has to take context in improving local neighbourhoods, and as a result, it fell off a cliff. And I don't know. I was going to say that it was one of the sort of the saddest thing we saw in Scotland, but the saddest thing that happened in Scotland was our conversation with the Fraser family, which you know was heavy, and we won't get into it now. But being in that alleyway with Peter when that lad arrived to shoot up, and like the shit, honestly, shit smeared alleyway. There is turds on the floor, like discarded clothing, discarded needles. It reeks of piss and shit, obviously. And it's just like some bloke's Fiesta's parked there. There's like a turn in the alleyway, so you can't see down from the street. And users basically walk down there, shoot up, chuck the needle, chuck the whole kit, and then, you know, they're off on their way. And how you can't have sympathy and empathy for the people that are doing that, like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. And I think it's because people would rather look the other way and pretend that, you know, drug users are like, you know, lost self-control. Someone texted me on LBC and was like, these people have lost their survival instinct, and it's just like, it is pathetic to think that an addict wants to be an addict. Is just like, how callous do you have to be to suggest that someone wants to be in that alleyway using heroin? They don't want to be there, you know. It's the circumstances of their life, the circumstances of it beforehand, whether, you know, lost job, not happy, not fulfilled. I think, like, you look at, I don't know, let's take, you talked about Glastonbury, right? Why do the 250,000 people at Glastonbury who are on, you know, any combination of drugs, literally, like, you know, acid, coke, MDMA, take your pick, they're on it. Why do those people then, when they get back from Glasgow, are they able to, like, reintegrate into society and, like, go and work in their jobs? Why don't they get addicted to those substances when they take them? And why do other people get addicted when they do take them? And it's obviously, it seems so obvious. It's like, it's the class divide. Do you know what I mean? The people at Glastonbury can afford Glastonbury tickets. You've had this conversation already. We won't retread it. And they're happy. If you're taking coke and you're not happy,
Yeah.
you start spiraling.
Yeah.
And that escapism comes into it. So.
And many people in our industry, actually, I think, have quite a serious cocaine problem. It's actually extraordinary, and it's never sexy or glamorous or in any way that it's painted. It's really ugly.
Yeah,
I mean, I've had friends doing lines in the morning before they go to meetings. You know, it's not nice.
Absolutely no, it's horrible. There's no way in which that can be viewed as some kind of like sexy escapism.
No.
Someone getting up at 7 a.m. to rack up a line. It's horrendous.